Okay.
Good morning. Let's call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Kelsey, get to her chair here.
In the position.
All right, before we go to the minutes, I would like to make a recommendation to table our utility review request. Thank you, Kelsey and Kara, for all the work that you guys have done. But Doug is not here, and Doug, I would prefer that you're here in person if that's okay. So we can go through it. It's not a huge emergency, and another month is not gonna, do anything.
I agree. I definitely like to do it next month when I can be there in person, have notes in front of me, and give a background of where we've been, where we are, and where I think we're going, and have a probably a little more better and coherent discussion if I'm there in person. So I would prefer that.
Okay, so if I can have somebody make a motion to table this.
I second motion.
Do you want me?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so motion has been approved. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion has been approved. Okay, now we move to the minutes of Tuesday, February 15, 2020. Have you guys had time to read them? And
Yes.
a motion to approve the minutes as they are.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
You do?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Comments, questions? Okay, motion has been approved. Okay, public comment. Have public comment?
We did not have any public comments submitted prior to the meeting. I do see that there's a few people on Zoom this morning.
Okay, would anybody like to make a comment? Going once?
Don't see any raised hands, Trevor.
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now we move to action items, utility review. We don't have any, right? Correct? All right, let's move on to public works status.
Okay, so right now it's all about the budget. So we're getting everything set up for next year. I think I've laid out what projects we're really focusing on. I'm kind of putting all my desires on the table, and I'll let Bruce and the committee kind of knock off what they don't want. We've talked about what I'm putting forward. Outside of that, we haven't really had any controversial plans or sites that we've had to deal with as far as anything that's unique or unusual concerning our facilities. We are finishing up the meter module project. We have 2 3-inch meters left to install. They now have those in hand, so the water team has scheduled those for install, and we'll be able to call the meter module project done. And then that's when we'll probably do our next big media blast, trying to get people to sign up for Ion Water. I will probably wait until we're past the budget committee process before I do that, because that's going to require a lot of interaction with the public if they embrace what we're asking of them. And so I don't want to be in the middle of the budget when we're trying to do that. I really want to be available and have kind of a help desk concept. Now that the mask mandate's been lifted, ultimately what I would like to do is to have City Hall open maybe 2 hours on 2 separate times where they could come in and get some help. So they'd have a hands-on opportunity. They'd have a help number they could call if they couldn't come in person or didn't want to. We leave them the how-to tutorial. So they'd have a lot of options to be able to get signed on. I put something on Facebook. Somebody had asked about the meter modules, and I had told them it's free. It's a software that's available to everybody. So I kind of gave them a little bit of a, blurb about what that was all about. And several times in the comments, I said, and did I mention it was free?
Right.
I just did another media release to Catherine Stimpson that called me from the Gazette. They're going to do an article on the phase 2 funding we just got. There was one already in the Astorian. And so that's kind of reminding people where we are in the 3 big phases of our water resiliency, which is going to get water to town within 72 hours of an event. And so it's good that that stays visible. We're in the loan funding application process right now for phase 3. So we're just in the infancy stages of that. Remember, this can be anywhere from 8 to 12 months to 14-month process. So I wouldn't anticipate any funding being cut loose to us for phase 3, other than maybe the engineering aspect of it. The Business Oregon folks felt like they could probably get us some funding to get started on phase 3 engineering, which would be great, because that's the really big phase. Business Oregon is reviewing the RFP, RFQ that I spoke to some of you guys about. That really doesn't pertain to the Public Works Committee per se, but I was looking for residents that had that expertise, and I knew I had some folks on this team. So after this meeting, we'll talk about that process. But they are reviewing the draft RFQ, RFP before we issue it publicly.
Mhm.
And so once they've approved that, Kelsey will pull the trigger and get that out to public bid. And that's for phase 1. That's our seismic valves.
Okay.
I feel we can have that constructed complete by the end of this calendar year. That's my goal.
All right.
And so depending on what kind of responses we get back from the bids and what kind of supply chain challenges we encounter, that will dictate that pace. But that's my goal, is to get that done in this calendar year, not budget year, calendar year. So December of 22. At the same time, that RFP, RFQ template, if you will, that we now use for these Fed loans, that is virtually the same template. The only thing that changes in that is the actual scope of the project that RFP is going out for. So all the legalese, all the things that have to be in that to fulfill not only our procurement requirements, but Business Oregon's requirements is intact. And so that's what Business Oregon's reviewing right now. So we'll literally take that same template, change the scope, and for phase 2 that they've just funded, that's where we start to really get into the meat of the project. And that's where we start replacing the lines from the spring all the way down to our water distribution point. So that'll be somewhere around the RV park, Public Works yard in that area.
Okay.
So the first step of that, phase 2, will be to get that RFP out. And that's what some of y'all be involved in, doing the review of whoever we select for that.
Great.
And so that's kind of where we are with the water resiliency. We've talked about wastewater already. But those are the things that we have in motion right now, is really focusing on those RFPs for the phases that we already have money for. Phase 3, pushing forward on that funding. Business Oregon had a call with us, and they wanted us to break that phase 3 down within the phase 3's individual parts, because that was a big phase. I mean, it was over $13 million. And remember, we started this in 2019 is when we started pursuing loans. So you have to add in and amend that phase 3 to factor in the inflation factor from 2019 when we first asked them for the money, and now that they're actually reviewing the application. So we've already done that. Windsor Engineering helped us reevaluate that. So that's in motion. That water resiliency is going to be in motion for quite some time. Ultimately, we've anticipated that this project could be constructed complete by 2026, all 3 phases of it. So that is the goal. That's the vision right now. And again, it all depends on how fast Business Oregon can turn those documents around when they're reviewing them, getting them back into our hands, us pulling the trigger to get those documents out for bid, responses back, supply chain issues, and then getting it constructed. So that'll be our project that stays in motion for us. We'll be touching that every day in some form or fashion.
Mhm.
And let's see, what else, Trevor, we worked on that I'm drawing a blank
Can I
on.
talk about trees for 1 second? The tree out on we have to close the nature trail at the city main park. At the beginning of this month, we got a hazard tree that's on the nature trail. It's actually upheaving the trail. It's leaning over the creek. So we got to get a crane in there and we're going to be shutting down that section of the trail during that operation. We'll post it on Facebook, but if anyone asks, why is the trail closed in that section? That's what's going on.
Okay.
And that's really more of a parks thing. I like to keep us focused on infrastructure, but thank you, Trevor. If that comes up, at least you guys will be aware of it. Relative to infrastructure, Warren Way intersection is progressing really well. Everything's going, I don't want to jinx myself.
Yeah.
Everything's going better than anticipated. And the traffic obstruction has been very minimal. They've done a really good job keeping that intact, let's say. So it'll be nice to have that completed. And that'll be towards the end of this month. I think the 25th is the date that they're supposed to wrap up.
And again, there'll be stop signs, right?
There'll be 2 more stop signs added, so it'll become a 4-way stop instead
Yes,
of
good.
2-way. That was council's decision. They had a couple options to consider based on traffic studies that have been done in that intersection many years ago. One consideration was a roundabout. It's kind of a strange intersection for a roundabout,
Mhm.
very small for where you'd normally put a roundabout. And then just the visual aspect of coming off the highway and seeing the beach. If you put a roundabout there and you tried to put any art or any landscaping to make it more visually attractive, some roundabouts could be quite ugly. Now you're kind of obstructing your vision of our ocean. And so the 4-way stop was the route that they went.
Simple and good, efficient.
Simple, a lot more cost effective.
Yes.
And really from the traffic study, the study did not feel that the roundabout was something that was going to be needed before 2030 something in the study. And so I think this is a good interim to be able to address what is happening there, because there is enough foot traffic going back and forth from Moe's and both of the hotels on each side and the store, that it probably dictated something that was better traffic control to give the pedestrians a chance to cross safely. And as you guys know,
Yes.
2 of those corners did not have ADA ramps. So anytime you're doing any kind of intersection or road improvement to a certain level, we are required to put ADA ramps in. So it was a given. We were going to have to do that if we did anything to that intersection. So this was a good time to address that. Talabana Inn has been gracious enough to accept the responsibility to water and maintain the sod that's being extended down. And so the city has an agreement with them, a contract agreement that they will maintain that from here on out. And so it was a great partnership. One of our local businesses, our council, the budget committee, we got grant funding to do that intersection. We needed about $30,000 in addition to meet the bid that came back. And so it really worked out well.
Good.
Really did. So that'll be finishing up. The abatement team over at the school is going to finish on Thursday. I went over this morning and took a look. With Bruce's approval, I'll send him the photos, but it'd be great for the committees to kind of see what it looks like now. I don't know how many of you had a chance to go in before. I think me personally, for the first time, I'm actually seeing the real potential that could happen, especially in the gym. So it could be a really fun project. So I'd like to be able to share those with you guys, and I'll send them to Bruce and have him send them out. But yeah, it's kind of cool. It sure smells better in there, I'll tell you that. There's
Now-
times Trevor and I walked out of that school and we were like, thank goodness for the masks, man.
And just for me, was there asbestos in there and everything? I mean, old,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, very good.
That's what's happening right now is when the whole building was assessed originally during the roof time and the seismic, Bruce went ahead and they talked to council, and council said, yeah, let's go ahead and do the abatement. Let's assess it for asbestos. So they tested both classrooms and the gym and came back with a report that told us every area that was hot, meaning it had asbestos. And so we put that out to bid. The bids came back, and it was soup to nuts as far as bids. It was quite an eye opener. I hadn't dealt with asbestos since I worked in Santa Monica, California, in one of our multi-story buildings that our central office was in. And that was my first real exposure to what happens with asbestos and the process and everything. So it's been a long time. This was interesting going through it this time and see what things have changed. The process is pretty much the same, how they tint up, suit up, but the actual method is a little bit different. It's come a ways, meaning how they use the water to control the particulates that go up into the air, even when they're inside those tents, and how quickly we've been able to go in. Years past, they wouldn't let you go in for quite a period of time. Now it's not that way. So they've been able to control a lot of the residual, if you will, from that process. So
Kind of similar also to lead paint. That was a problem too.
that's interesting because they checked the some of the areas for the lead, and the mural itself, they sealed off not only to protect it, but if they didn't want to damage it, right, during the abatement. And so from that aspect, a lot of that can be left intact but sealed to be protected,
Okay.
so that no one would ever be impacted by something that could flake off.
It's harder to eat then.
Yeah, they did that actually outside as well as inside. Yeah.
Did they leave the non-friable asbestos in place, the stable stuff, or did they just remove all of
Clean
it,
slate.
everything?
Yeah,
Slate.
because the whole idea is to get it all out of there. Now, from our infrastructure perspective, people have asked me about the asbestos pipe that we have. We are allowed to leave some of that in place and abandon it to a certain extent. But when there's a lot of it, you're required to remove it. And so when we get into the pipe replacement, whatever company is selected to actually do this for us, they're going to give us all the guidelines on that. And we'll have to deal with the actual disposal of that if we have to remove it from the ground. So there's a lot of regulations associated with that the experts need to give us guidance on that. So it can add a lot of money to a project.
Yeah, usually when it's stable and non-friable, which means it can't be particulated very easily, then they'll allow you to stabilize that. leave it.
Especially if it's in an environment that is open, like the school would be, versus infrastructure that's in the ground that would be covered up and it wouldn't be touched per se, unless you had to excavate, and so like I say, there's a lot of rules and regulations about that.
Good.
So that's happening at the school. Like I say, they're anticipated to finish up by Thursday. The bid is going to go out for the roof for the gym because that was delayed. We couldn't get the material back when we were doing the classrooms. So they're going to reissue the bid on that for us. And so we will see who is selected on that process. So get the roof on that before next season's. It's leaking a lot. You go in the gym now with all the floor and everything out, and because it's concrete, you really see exactly where the water's coming down. Whereas before on the floor, it was all, all that cork was bubbled and popped up. So water's rolling, it was hard to be able to tell exactly where it was coming from. It was like a needle in the haystack. Now it's much more obvious where it's coming from. And I was very surprised when they got the floor up, the condition of the concrete.
Oh.
I mean, there's very little of it that is cracked or pieces chipped out. It was very surprised. That floor is in really good shape,
Right on.
surprisingly. And even the folks that came and inspected it, they said it's not foundational. It's all just cosmetic cracks like concrete does. So.
Sometimes you get a good pour.
It is, you know. So it's all, to me so far, and I don't want to jinx us, it's good news for the gym, I think. So you stand in there now and it actually feels clean, you know, so it's kind of fun. You'll see the pictures. And that's pretty much what we've got going on. It's going. And Matanuska, we told you guys the bid was awarded to O'Brien. That was announced in the council work session as well. They authorized us to award it. And so we're going to have our pre-bid meeting this week. And so the cover will be built over Matanuska and the new generators in there. And so we're really excited. That pump station is going to be great shape. We got Haystack all done. So yeah, the wastewater team has really kicked buns this past couple of years. They've done a lot to get our pump stations really brought up to speed. So Mike has done a phenomenal job as our wastewater lead, really great. So, and with Trevor's oversight and kind of guiding him, he's just really done a great job. Proud of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
We took them for biscuits and gravy one morning to tell them how much we appreciate. They work really hard on Matanuska during the holidays, the rain, the wind blowing sideways. I mean, they really worked hard. So anyway, so that's kind of where we are in public works. Any questions about stuff I might not have touched on you're curious about?
Trying to think.
Wait, you have to go last.
No,
I'm teasing you.
She's bad.
well, Bruce is coming up. We had a presentation. Was it Daryl or Daniel that gave his presentation of the water?
Daniel,
Daniel.
excellent.
And he offered a tour at that time. I'd like to take him up on that for anybody,
I would
especially
love
with
one.
some of the projects coming up. I'd love to have a tour of that system, see all it's about. So that I can get my
We'll arrange that. Give me some days to avoid. And then what I'll do is get with Daniel and have him give us some date choices that work for him to be able to give you guys tours. If we do all of you, it has to be announced as a public meeting. Okay. And then we'll get it scheduled and get you guys toured. Okay. Let me know what all you want to see. You want to see the plant?
Mhm.
What else? Some of our actual pump stations, like Sunset is a water pump station. Ash has a
Pump
water pump
station.
station.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of walk through the process. Just,
Yeah, walk you through the process of what happens when we.
It would be
turn on the
beautiful.
Faucet at the house. How does
Yes.
it get to us?
I would love that.
Okay, you got it. We'll set it up.
The other question I had was about Ion Water and that software. Are there user costs that we're paying?
There are.
Monthly or annually, and will there be upgrades that we'll have to purchase in the future?
There is a monthly cost for the software, yes. As far as upgrades, like any software, there's always upgrades. I don't know how often the upgrade would be required. When we talk to Hermiston, they have the same system.
Good.
It's not like they're doing upgrades every year or anything like that, but they may do upgrades periodically that they.
Do you know if that's included in the user fees or if that's
It
a
is.
separate fee? Okay, so the user fees cover any role.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I go now?
Yes.
Maybe.
Hey, there's a reason we keep you in the back.
For the record, Bruce St. Dennis, city manager.
Thank you.
That's right.
In other words,
Hey,
your
boss.
Sit here during the budget presentations and I'm kind of over where she is. And I will start to say something and she goes. During her presentation. So anyway, I'm used to it. But I know that Karen went over all the fun stuff associated with the Cannon Beach Elementary rejuvenation. So now we're going to get into the drab things like hiring an architect to go ahead and do the design, all that. That should happen on April 5th.
Good.
And we're really excited about the team that we've started working with. And so that's all good. And anticipate it'll be done probably sometime next summer. They're looking at probably 8 months of construction time, but just really excited about it and I don't remember, did I tell you about when we did the mandatory pre-proposal meeting?
No.
I mean, all those architects were there and I said, welcome, and we're standing in one of the classrooms. Welcome to the coolest project you will ever work on in your career. And this is the one that you will bring people to, all your friends and stuff like that. And we talked about the tribes and, all the things that are going on there and all the potential that we've got. And people talk about, what was it, Haystack? What was the name of the event? Haystack something, Haystack Summer, or what?
Yeah, I think it was Haystack Summer, yeah.
Well, anyway, where they used to bring in artists and all that kind of thing. And anyway, we just really intend to do a really good job. It'll be substantially for tourism related activities, but the residents will be able to, attend those. And then when it's not being used for a specific tourism function, it's still available for other sorts of activities. So there'll be a lot going on there. And one of the things is when I'm looking to hire a consultant and they're more excited about the project than me, I like that.
Yes.
And so anyway, so we're making some progress on that project. And we'll probably be starting the selection of the architect for City Hall in the next 2 months or so. And that's a project that is, well, the way that the two projects are coming together on the financing is that the Cannon Beach Elementary is probably going to be $5.5 million. But we didn't want to borrow too much money because, and again, we don't have any specifics on the dollars right now. So if we borrowed 5.5 and we spent 5, then that last $500,000, like when you try to make extra payments on your house, and in the beginning, it really doesn't, you can put it to principal. Well, we have to use that money to make payments, but we can't put it to principal. So you're using real dollars to pay off interest. And so what we're doing is we borrowed 4.6, and then we have, from a timing standpoint, around the time that we would be doing the City Hall project, we're looking to do a bond issue probably in January of 23. And when we do that, we will add whatever we need to the Cannon Beach Elementary project from the borrowing. So again, that was to avoid over borrowing.
Okay. All right, very good.
Any other questions for Bruce while we got him up?
We thought about what there's going to be a new name for the elementary, I guess. Is it going to be just Cannon Beach Tourism something, or is there going to be a name for that facility?
There will be a name for the facility. And I don't know which way it's going to go. There was some talk about, the Cannon Beach Event Center, but it's more than that. It's all the property, so I'd like to see kind of an overall name like Nacoos Village, and then the event center at Nacoos Village, the park at Nacoos Village. But I don't know how that's going to go, but those kind of things take so much energy once you start talking about that, and you can have a project that's not controversial and it becomes controversial.
You can always have a contest. Name it.
Oh, because then you got direct competition. No.
Okay, very good. All right.
They come to you and the design gets.
Right. I know. There you go.
Yeah.
Can I assume the food pantry will still stay there, or how does that go?
Well, that was the intent. What you can assume is that the city will provide a location for the food pantry. There's just, because the cost of repairing the building is not a lot less than buying new modulars.
Right.
The council tasked us to look at other properties that we own, that if we were to use a new modular, that we could put, we could go to those locations. So, but we're continuing the support of the food pantry.
Thank you.
And the existing building, You hook it up to a truck, it's all gonna rip apart. So,
Yeah.
Right.
One other question is, with interest rates rising, do we get a favorable, by being a city ordinance, do we get a favorable interest rate when we borrow or
not because,
locked?
not because we're a city, but we were small A3, and I don't really know what all that means.
Okay,
But that's what we were when we borrowed for the Ecola Creek Forest Project and the wastewater plant. We went through an interview with Standard and Poor's, and they seemed pleased with what we told them, and they gave us double capital A rating.
very good.
So that rating will help us, but the fact that we're a city.
But the AA rating, that will help.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good, very good.
And we are actually going to the market on Thursday.
Great. Well, let's get it in there before everything goes up. It's kind of like having a good credit rating.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get a favorable rate.
Yeah, timing's everything.
Timing's everything. I agree with you.
And we have been pushing to get that in as early as possible. We were successful. I'm a little nervous about what might be happening, for the second one, but it is what it is.
Good, okay, very good.
And we kind of face the same thing with the 3 phases of our water resiliency, because the initial money that the feds had for the safe drinking water revolving funds was the 1% with the principal forgiveness. With phase 3, and now the next batch of Fed money they're getting, that 1% loan may not be available to us. So they wanted us to break that phase 3 down into smaller chunks. So we separated the tank from the backbone on Highway 101, and we even separated that north and south, and then the engineering piece of it. So those are the 4 phases within the final phase 3 of this project. The Business Oregon felt like there could be some funding opportunities that are actually better than what we have right now as far as principal forgiveness, but the interest rates may be a little higher. And so it's all based on market interest rates.
Excellent that we're doing that.
Manipulating
Very good.
that at all. And, Fed money is Fed money, right? And so, as well as the fact these are competitive loans. And so they will look at these and compare them to other applicants that have submitted their applications asking for funding. And so this is why we were pushing so hard on this in the beginning to get this rolling, because that 1% loan and for 30 years with that principal forgiveness was just like, you don't get any better than that.
Nope.
And so we were able to get 2 of the phases through on that. Now it's going to be just the
Might chunk it up, okay.
working through the phase 3 and see what's available to us. And so really, when we talk about this being like a mortgage on steroids, it really is. And to try to explain that to the media or residents so that they understand how complicated it is. And that's why it takes so long.
Yes.
It really is. It's
Good
exhausting.
work. You're doing excellent work.
It's team effort, man. It's not just me, believe me.
Right.
There's a lot of people helping us with this.
Brains together and yeah, that's good.
And so you just kind of have to stay on it. And so that's what Bruce is dealing with at a much larger scale when you're talking the school and the PD and all that. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts that go into that. And timing is really critical.
Stay AA.
Yeah.
And I know that you folks are aware of this, but when we complete all 3 phases, this city will be in an enviable position in terms of water distribution, because it'll all be HDPE pipe, and we will have it all the way down from phase 1 and 2 in part of 3. We'll have it all the way down so that it's to the city, so that if we ever have a real problem, we still have a place somebody can come and get water. Then we're going to do the distribution down 101, which we don't have now. Our distribution goes through the city.
Right.
So, a line break in the street, kind of cuts off the north end sort of a thing. So the position that we'll be in once that work is done is amazing.
Absolutely great. And with Daniel's going back, like Steve said, with his presentation, the 3 springs, and very little chlorine. I mean, it's an excellent
Yeah.
system. If we can just get all those phases done.
It's just,
Be a person for the Gazette, when I talked to her early this morning, she wasn't even aware that our sole source of drinking water comes from those 3 springs.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I said, that's where our water comes from, you know? So the goal here is to save what's in the tank and not lose that and on all 3 of them. And then be able to get water to town, even if the tank survives, if the lines rupture from the tank down, we're still. So that's why all these.
We are blessed with a
Matter.
natural gift.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yeah, we will really. And she said, well, isn't the ultimate goal to get people out of here? And I said, yeah, but until we can evacuate and have help getting people out, we got to get them water. You know, they have to have water.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. Once you start thinking about it, it's, you know, it's pretty scary, you know?
Amber,
Very.
do you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I do. I've had my hand raised for a while, and so I'm sorry I didn't want to interrupt anyone, but I do have a question that goes back to Bruce talking about the school project. Is it possible? I mean, I'm curious about the naming that you brought up, just only because I'm wondering who's deciding on the naming and how is that process happening? Is there any community input at all on the naming or the tribe's input on the naming?
yeah, no, absolutely there will be. There was just something that came up that somebody thought that if we had it already had it named, that it wouldn't have been an issue. And so people started to try to name it, you know, just a little bit at the council, but it's really not necessary right now. It'll definitely be a very public process. The council will be the decision maker. And when I talk about the architects starting around the 5th, the first group that they're going to meet with, and we've been working with Dick Bash, who's the head of the tribal organization.
Right.
But it'll be like, I think Dick said 6 or 7 of the elders from the tribe.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, the first ones that the architects meet with, and the idea is that they both imprint on each other. And then all the other things will happen along the way, but it's still the Nakus village site
Right.
with all the other things going on.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, that's great.
Amber, and I'm sorry I didn't see your hand up. It's too far away for me to see. I can't wait for you guys to be here and present at the meeting so we don't have to deal with that part. So
Oh,
sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I have to say that I'm not retired. And so it's really hard for me to fit these meetings in at 9 a.m. around my work. And so I'm not going to be able to be there most likely just because I do have back-to-back meetings all day. And so when Public Works has their meeting, I phone in for it.
Oh, well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Amber. We appreciate
I
that.
promise to, Trevor, you're gonna have to see that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on it.
Thank you. So,
Thanks so much.
That's one of the things that I don't think I heard you mention is in the firm that Bruce is working with, they have a gentleman that has a lot of tribal experience on
Great.
projects they've worked, and he was a pleasure to talk to. That guy was really sharp, very knowledgeable, and he's going to be fun to have on this project.
Yeah, and actually the firm is owned by a tribal member.
Yeah.
And won an award from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation as the it was in the early 2000s, but it was like the best native owned engineering company, you know, in the state.
Great.
that's great.
Super history. That's great.
Yeah.
So Trevor, you're going to be our hand monitor.
Yep.
Okay.
The hands here.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Questions on public works status?
Can I go?
You're excused.
Yes, sir. You're dismissed to the back of the room.
That's
right, yeah, Catholic school where I had to sit.
That's right. I
They used to call that the dunce chair, you know?
Sit in the corner.
We're gonna make him a hat.
Sky's out of control again.
All right, so moving right along here. So we are tabling utility relief requests and 2022-23 project priorities. we pretty much.
Pretty much covered that.
Mhm.
You guys have any questions,
Let
Karen?
me do a last call with you guys for anything you feel you want me to put on the budget committee table that I might not have talked to you about. Is there something that has come up since we've been talking about projects that you'd like to?
The only thing that I am a little interested in is with Ecola Park Road closed.
Mhm.
Is that going to be ongoing? Because I live up there and I just see cars up, bang, bang. They go up, they come back, people, even they don't look at the road closed.
Mhm.
They just come up.
Mhm.
And so is that going to be a long time coming or?
I don't have a status from state parks,
Okay,
but I will say, and ODOT, ODOT, because they own that road. But they kind of work with state parks, just like we do on anything concerning Ecola. There's a lot of hands in the process up in that area. But they haven't given us any kind of firm commitment of when that's going to be resolved. I think a lot of that is to get funding to repair that road. It's not the first time that's washed out and
Right.
had damage up there. One time it was quite an extensive delay in them getting the money to fix it. And so I'll touch base with them and see if they can give us any kind of a status based on where they are with it right now.
it's kind of funny as a tour guide, people come by and they say, is it really closed? I say, yeah, it's closed.
Yeah,
The sign down there?
Yeah.
But we used to have that huge sign,
I
right?
thought they removed that, yeah.
And it's gone, right? Because.
Yeah.
The electric one.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they had to use it at another location for something. They've had a lot of slides with the heavy
Okay.
rains this year. So I think they had to take it, use it somewhere they needed it. And so they put the little closed as you come off the highway. But some people were getting confused and they thought Carmen's RV park was closed. So they had to kind of reposition it and it's not quite as noticeable. And then they put the second one as you turn going up. And not everybody notices that either.
Right, no
Sorry,
problem.
Scott.
You know how it is with signs. People don't always see them and read them,
Right, okay, that's it. That's all.
Yeah,
I think other than that, I think everything, you guys are doing a great job.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
I really appreciate you guys' support and the encouragement. You guys have done it in many forums and I just want to tell you how much we appreciate that. We do.
Okay.
All right.
Did I have anything for good of the order from anybody? Done? Amber?
Yeah,
No,
fine.
I'm good. I look forward to seeing you all in person next month.
Yes.
Yay.
Hey, Doug.
Amber?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, all
Great.
right. So for good of the order, we have a blood drive today, starting at 10 a.m. So we have one opening, just so you guys know. Out of 35, I have one opening. And then the next blood drive is June 21st, and it's open for appointments. So go tell a friend, go sign up. Right. So, all right, that's all I have.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Have
Thank
a
you.
great rest of your week and be safe. No mask.
You.
Thank you.
No mask. no
Thank you.
mask. Yes.
Thank you.